Fantasy football universe, welcome in is SC Romero, the DEVY Mastermind of the FFU, here to bring you another DEVY Game Day preview. And I'm joined today by a very special guest, returning guest, my man Spencer. But we are going to get into the top 25 matchups and what you should be looking for when you're watching some of these very exciting games today, right after the intro. Woo! And we are back today with another DEVY Game Day. My man Spencer, how's it going, brother?
Doing great, man. How are you?
Doing good, man. Doing good. The chills are up. I've been up off and on since about 5:30 or so, man. It's a very important game for us here today out in, as you know, the Oregon, the state where the grass is always green in Eugene, if you know what I'm talking about. This is huge for us. So this is going to be a big one for us right now. And I mean, this is a big game. We're going to talk about it all, as we get through. There's actually a lot of big games here and, some possible upsets that we see as well. My man, how's it going? Let's go. Dynasty Dog, Mike, my man. I always love to see you here, brother. This is very exciting because, man, it's like I said, we're getting into the beat of the schedules, and we have a bunch of big games here. We already saw one upset already happen when Utah lost to Arizona State. So this is possibly some more upsets to come. But before we get into, is there a game you're excited to talk about here?
No, I mean that Oregon game, it doesn't get bigger than that. I mean we're potentially looking at college football championship preview right there. So I'd say that's the game. If I had to pick one other one, I kind of want to see the Pitt California game. I'm excited to talk about that. Pitt entering the top 25.
Okay.
Holstein, but we'll talk about it.
Yeah, there's gonna be some big games here, all around. I mean, Oregon, of course, as you know, that's gonna be the game I want to talk about. But let's just start off with the top one here. That's South Carolina at Alabama, number 7. Bama is favorite minus 21.5. I think this is very, very, very spread out for Bama. I don't know if they cover this necessarily. I mean, don't get me wrong, Bama has some playmakers, right? So I know they can definitely jump in there. But at the same time, this is something where it's going to be a close one, man. South Carolina has some dogs with them as well. So, I mean, they have guys on defense that can make some plays. They have some pretty good guys on offense as well, that can make some plays. Raheem Sanders is looking like he's coming back and doing some good things as well. So that's great to see there. There's a lot of good opportunity there for them. But Alabama, as you know, Jalen Milroe, I mean, a couple weeks ago against Georgia, looked phenomenal. They have a top wide receiver freshman there as well, and Ryan Williams. They have solid linebackers that can get after it. That will be a problem for, Raheem Sanders there. But what are your thoughts on this game specifically?
Yeah, I mean, this is an interesting one. I mean, Bama got punched in the face last week after coming off, a win that made it look like they were all-time favorites. So,
right.
I think the spread's a little aggressive just with how they looked last week. But Bama's also the type of program I could see them coming out and just throwing everything they have to show that they belong and knocking South Carolina out. But I still think if I'm a betting man, minus 21.5 feels a little aggressive. I think, as you said, this is going to be a close game. Lenore Sellers is, up and down, but he can get after it and keep them in this game.
Yeah.
For South Carolina is legit.
The benefit is it is in Tuscaloosa, right? And in the SEC, in every college game, don't get me wrong, but in the SEC specifically, when it's a home game, that does play an advantage, man. They have crowds like no other. I mean, you go Tuscaloosa, amazing crowd. You go to Georgia, amazing crowd. You go to the Swamp, amazing crowd. All around, they have fans that are not quiet at all. So you have to be prepared to go out there and do it. Question here, because Jalen Milroe, he slid a little bit because of that loss. But, I mean, a few weeks ago, people were talking about him as a potential top 10 pick, definitely a first-round pick. Do you agree with that take? Is he a first-round pick, or do we need to see more from him?
I think he's a first round pick, but I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, this year is kind of rough, so he's still my de facto number one quarterback for fantasy. I think Cam Ward for real life would be my number one overall.
Mhm.
But I mean, we're just not seeing the same talent from this group of guys that we saw last year or
Mhm.
a few years ago with the failed Trey Lance, Justin Fields.
Yeah,
Uh,
for sure.
but so first round pick, I think he probably sneaks in. Top 10 always felt a little aggressive to me though,
Yeah,
just given the amount of talent in this year's class. I think on the defensive side of the ball,
right,
it feels a little bit like the Kenny Pickett year where I could see Milrow or Cam Ward sneaking into the end of the first round. But
right.
I think we want those high quarterbacks. I just don't think we
Mhm.
have them this year, really.
Right now, the two definitive. I've done a mock. I need to release my thread there on the mock there. Um, the two definitive guys I think are if Quinn comes back and leads Texas to an undefeated season, which we have a big game for them this week, and then they have a big game coming up against Georgia here. But
Yeah,
that's so I can see it. But Arch Manning looks phenomenal too. That Texas can put on all cylinders. And then Shadir Sanders. And a reason why I don't think he's the first round quarterback. I see a lot of flaws. I think he's a elevated Malik Willis. People will hate that, but I think he's the rich man's Malik Willis, basically. He's still a raw talent, still has a lot to prove to me, in my opinion. But I think that hype's going to get to it. I think that's going to allow him to be a top 10 pick, potentially. And then Quinn Ewers. I love Cam Ward. I think Cam Ward can sneak in. I've seen some mocks where he's in top 10. I don't believe in that. I didn't see it for a full season. I've seen Cam Ward do great things at the beginning of the season and drop
yeah,
it and then not. As far as Milrow, um, man, I have a hard time trusting Alabama quarterback. I know people will say, look at Tua's been hurt. He hasn't, he's looked good. At the same time, he hasn't understood how to take care of block the hit and understand how to take the hit like that. That's been a big concern. Mac Jones, we saw him. He struggled. People will say Jalen Hurts. I got news for you, everyone that's watching. Jalen Hurts was drafted out of Oklahoma. He wasn't drafted out of Alabama. So to me, he's not Alabama quarterback. But um, historically, you don't draft these Alabama quarterbacks. I mean, it's just they just don't pan out. The last good one, I believe, was the name's dropping me actually right now that I can't think about. It was like in the early 2000s. That was very not even 2000s. Excuse me. It was Hall of Fame. I'm dropping the name for the Jets. What's his name? Namath. Is it Namath? I think Namath
was
was
name
the
it the
second.
last.
That was like the last
Yeah,
legit one that I feel like.
yeah,
But so I don't trust these Alabama quarterbacks. I think there's a lot of stuff that can go wrong with them. I think they are a factor of the situations they are in. They have great offensive schemes. They have great weapons, and we're seeing it with the bar now. Um, Jalen Monroe is not Michael Penix. Michael Penix has a better arm. Monroe does have the ability to get out the pocket and stuff, but as a quarterback full on, I just don't see it in Jalen Monroe personally. But that's weird, Time will tell. Hope he proves you wrong. I do think Alabama could win this game. They should. If they don't, wow, it's going to cause chaos. But I
yeah.
don't think they cover the spread necessarily. I think it's going to be closer. I can see a 2-point game, but 3, that's a little tough for me. I just think South Carolina does have some ammunition on both offense and defense to make it a closer game than 21.5. You agree with that?
Yeah, no, I really do.
Okay. Yeah, so let's get to the next one. This one's an intriguing one as well. As I mentioned, we got a ton of them. And this one, before we go on, I feel like this one is the week that we have the most spreads under 10. Really, this is a really good week here. But this one's gonna be Clemson number 10 at Wake Forest. Clemson is favorite, minus 21. What are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, so I mean, I really like what Clemson has kind of done these last couple of weeks. They've really turned it around a little bit.
Mhm, for sure.
So I think they cover the spread. Wake Forest has, they seem to go back and forth with who they are as a team.
Hmm.
Of course, it's at Wake Forest. They do have a good crowd. They're one of those teams that seems always outside the top 25, but
Hmm.
puts on good football. I could see their offense actually giving to the Clemson defense a little bit of trouble, but Clemson's defense is also their identity, and the
Hmm.
Wake Forest doesn't really have much of a defense to speak of.
For sure.
So, Yeah, I lean on Clemson probably covers this spread, but with these big spreads, I'm always nervous about that. I could see them sitting 2 scores up and just grinding down the clock the rest of the game, not really
Mm-hmm.
wanting to get into a shootout on the road.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. This is going to be a huge one. I think Wake Forest's defense is going to be big. Was it last week they were down by 10 to beat NC State? So that's going to be huge. I think it was last week when that was. Double check here real quick. Um, yeah, down by 10 to end up in the fourth quarter to come back and beat NC State. That was a huge win for them. They do have pressure off the edge for them. So this is going to be huge on Kate Klubnik, and beginning of the season, I was like, man, I'm out on Klubnik. I don't know. But he's definitely caught his stride. He's starting to do a little bit more now and show some benefits in what he can do for the offense. And we're loving to see it. And really, outside of Klubnik, it's really been the wide receivers that have began to step up a lot. You're actually seeing it now when you talk about Antonio Williams. Bryant Wesco's a great guy that we mentioned as well. They have their tight end in Bringenstool. And you mentioned the defensive side of the ball. That's going to be huge on them too. They have a freshman linebacker out there that does some great things for them as well. They have Barrett Carter that's definitely good. Sammy Brown is the freshman linebacker. Barrett Carter, who's arguably hit or miss at this point. I feel going into the season, people thought he was a top 5 linebacker. I think he can still be, but he definitely needs to come out and do a little bit more. He's had majority of his tackles be assisted, so he's not closing by himself. He's asking for some help when he gets to those tackles, but still doing really good. But then you have their guys, T.J. Parker, Tamarian Parker, on the edge, making big plays, 4 sacks already. So a bunch of big things to come from them. This is going to be Clemson grinding out defensively because I think Wake Forest can get some stuff. I think Clemson makes more opportunity on defense to favor them. Cover the spread at Wake Forest. I think Clemson should. It wouldn't surprise me if they did it, but I think Clemson should. I think they could win by like 24. So Wake Forest will put up points, but I think there's going to be a couple big defensive plays for Clemson that are going to separate them for that as well. Klubnik's someone to watch. I think Klubnik is a big key here. I know we talk about Ryan Williams and Jeremiah Smith, and we talk about both of them. But Brian Wesco, that's someone to target in your leagues because I think he's someone we're going to be talking about for years to come as well, as far as a freshman wide receiver there.
Yeah, no, I think he's a future first-round pick.
Yeah, for sure. This class, man, the freshman class is looking phenomenal. To be honest, they look great. I'm all in on these freshmen. I think we're having a somewhat down year this year. We're gonna have a down year next year, and then that 2027 class, so 2 years from now, we're gonna have a nice receiving class again. So it's nice, a nice little cycling there for them. Next one here, Missouri number 21 at Massachusetts. This might be our biggest spread of the day, I think. Missouri favorite minus 27.5. It should happen. But question for you. To me, Luther Burden coming into the season was the wide receiver 1. I know people have Tet. I mean, are Tet and Burden still the wide receiver 1 and 2? Or is this time for us to move Egbuka? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I've always been iffy on Burden because I was mostly worried because he does a lot of his work close to the line of scrimmage, and he's great at it. He's shifty after the catch, but I don't love that he's getting outperformed by Weiss Jr. I think that Tet has solidified himself for sure at the top there, but I think that the 2 is really up for grabs. He's still the front runner for it. I don't really see anyone as physically talented as Burden outside of Tet in this class, but you got to produce and you got to show that you can work yourself downfield, that you can run routes and be a complete player. Otherwise, you're just he's kind of like a juiced up Kadarius Toney right now, or a juiced up Quentin Johnson. Which a juiced up version of that can be very successful in the NFL. I mean, we're seeing Wan'Dale Robinson catch everything behind or at the line of scrimmage, and he's putting up huge fantasy points. But we don't want that from our wide receiver 2 of the class. We want a guy who can do it all: a Justin Jefferson, a Jamar Chase.
Right.
So he concerns me. I still think he's probably the default 2. But there are a lot of names that can push him that they just haven't stepped up yet.
Yeah, I think Egbuka could make that argument. I know Egbuka was he we're not talking about him as much because Jeremiah Smith is the new
Yeah.
guy there, right? But Ibuka is silently, being a killer as well. We're gonna talk more about him later on because he has a very important matchup this week. But we have Luther Burden, 4 touchdowns, 339 yards off 26 receptions, not too bad. Uh, I don't know as much as it's a Burden issue as much as it's a Brady Cook issue. It's
Yeah.
one of those situations where put Burden on Texas, which will be the next game we talk about here. He's stud. Put Burden on, put him in Alabama possibly. Stud. I think it's more so of a Brady Cook issue than because of Burden. Again, Ron Brady Cook's making things happen, but 63.6% completion. He already had only 5 touchdowns. He's not really doing it as much as we wanted to. Granted, their running backs are looking really good, and Nate Newell, he was someone I bought into because
Yeah.
he's transferred from Appalachian State, and Appalachian State always puts up, good running back numbers as well. So I was like, oh, if Nate Noel's going in there, he's going to be the guy. And sure enough, he is 6 yards per carry right now. So that's really good for him. Burden, I really do like, man. And these are one of the things where it's important for any scout. And to be honest, I don't feel a lot of NFL scouts necessarily do this, but it's important for every scout to not look at the stat line. The stat line matters. Don't get me wrong. You want to see what they're doing and see how they're producing, but you have to look at the tape as well. See what
Yeah.
they're doing to, like you mentioned, at the line. What is Burden doing when he's in that press coverage? How is he going up and getting after the ball? Is the ball a wobbly throw? Is he still making it? Because he has phenomenal hands. He has a great catch radius. He has the moves. He's a very crisp guy. He's I would say a poor man's Malik Labor, but he is a lesser version of Malik Nabers as far as the physicality. I feel like he's a physical receiver. He can't do that. He has crisp route running. Malik Nabers a lot smoother in the route running, but he's still someone that can go out there and get it. So that's where I love it about him. And I said it before. This is the Marvin Harrison versus Malik Nabers debate when it comes to Tet versus Burden to me. And I really do enjoy Burden. I think Burden has assets to be a top receiver in the NFL, or at least in the draft. But the stats are going to hurt him. And if that doesn't play well for them, then that could definitely hurt. They're 4-1 right now in the SEC when it comes to it. Not the SEC, just overall, which is 6 in the SEC, Missouri. So they have a lot of things still to go. But I hope they could get it going there. Brady Cook could start feeding him even heavily after that as well. But that's going to be some times for us to tell there too. Our next one here is going to be Texas number 1 at Oklahoma number 18. Texas favorite minus 16.5. This is the Red River rivalry. So this is a huge showdown for them. Two of the top programs in the nation, two of the top programs historically in the Big 12, now in the SEC, both going there. What are your thoughts on this game here?
Yeah, I mean, Texas should really take this, but Oklahoma came out last week. All this uncertainty, Jackson Arnold getting benched, and they pulled through.
Yep.
Texas still should have it. Texas it's hard. They're so complete. Every single, they have the wide receivers, they have the running backs. Somehow, with Baxter out, they've pulled it together.
Uh-huh.
You know, whether it's Ewers or Manning, it doesn't seem to matter. This offense is humming, and that defense is so legit. I want to know your thoughts. True freshman Colin Simmons has just been balling out. Which we talk about this freshman class. I mean, it's ridiculous, but I think he's got 5 or 6 sacks. I double check, which, freshmen aren't supposed to do that on the D line. They're supposed to sit and wait. He's got, I think, 4 sacks. So I don't know. I mean, this Texas team is complete. They have the youth and the experienced vets. It's I think they probably cover this spread, but Oklahoma's going to put up a fight at least. It won't be a murder bath or a bloodbath of a 3-score game. It'll be closer than it looks.
60.5 is a close spread here. I'm curious to see the Ewers and Manning situation here. Ewers should start right. I'm pretty sure Ewers is healthy to come back. So he's gonna get it. He's been electric. He's been able to see the pressure and get around it. He's been able to extend plays when he needs to, and he's delivering some darts as well. Over 70% completion right now. The running backs, Jadon Blue, Jarrett Gibson, they're really giving them similar splits, 50-50 almost, splits down the middle. So they have that. They don't really have their solid RB1, I feel like, as we've seen in the past, which is okay. But then you talk about the receiving course. I think Isaiah Bond is a first round wide receiver. I think he's going to
Yeah,
sneak into the first round. I currently have him going to the Buffalo Bills, which I think will be phenomenal for him. I think he's going to fit into that Stephon Diggs type of role, something they don't have right now. And then you have, freshman Ryan Wigo, another guy that, everyone's talking about Ryan Williams, Jeremiah Smith. We just talked about Brian Wisco. Again, this freshman class is going to be feeding families in 2027, man. We're going to be talking about probably 6, 7 of the potentially first round picks for our rookie drafts, so that's going to be huge. Gunnar Helm is a tight end to watch out for. I
yeah,
was able to scoop him up on a couple C2C leagues, and he's been phenomenal for me right now. 16 receptions, 220 yards through his first few games here. You talk about the defensive side. That's where I think Texas sides, man. I think Texas already had a very strong defense in the Big 12. I think when they transitioned to the SEC, mentally it just got them better. It just
yeah,
drove them to say, hey, SEC is known for their defense, but man, we're in Texas. We get our Southern boys. We get these guys. We get these guys that are core fed and just doing things early at 6 a.m. in the morning on bars or whatever. They get these guys that are going out there and gonna be some dogs. Some big boys in the front seven, some dogs in the defensive end or defensive back area too. So that's gonna be huge for them. That's why I think they signed. You mentioned Colin Simmons. Anthony Hill Jr. is one of my top linebackers that
okay,
we've been watching for years, and I think it's finally his time to shine. And Texas truly, to me, has produced back-to-back solid linebackers. We're finally seeing Demarion Overzone in Dallas doing some things. Jalen Ford is in New Orleans that I think is a phenomenal linebacker that once he gets a shot, we'll be talking about him. Anthony Hill Jr. is that next one. On Oklahoma side of the ball, though, I mean, they're not to be, backed around. I like Michael Hawkins Jr. Jackson
yeah,
Arnold, as you mentioned, less than 60% just hasn't done it. Michael Hawkins looks like the offense is rolling a lot better with him in the backfield. They also had Deion Burks, but the biggest thing is, I believe a few of these wide receivers are out. I'm pretty sure Deion Burks was just said that he's going to be out as well. I think they're
yeah,
missing like 5 or 6 wide receivers. That's going to hurt them, and that's going to make it pretty big for them. The It's going to be a defensive battle for Oklahoma. Their defense is going to need to show up, and right now I have Danny Stutzman as the first linebacker off the board. And
okay,
that's for Oklahoma. He's just a solid guy that gets in the middle. He closes his gaps effectively. He's someone that's gonna, make sure they're not running the ball. So Jared Gibson, Jadon Blue, it's gonna be tough sledding for y'all. It's gonna be, relying on the wide receivers and what they can do, because I think Stutzman will get in their face and make it happen as well. Leading the team in tackles with 40 overall right now. 60 and a half, because it's not officially at Oklahoma. The Red River rivalry is somewhere where I'm pretty sure it's going to be, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just double check here. I don't think it's in Oklahoma. I think it's in or Dallas. So in Dallas, it's at the Cotton Bowl, right?
yeah,
So that's where, because it's not officially a home game, and this is a really, you go to these games, half of it's orange, half of it's red. I mean, it's legit 50-50. It's going to be huge. So it's not really a home or advantage on home or anything like that. So that's where I think it's not going to be. It'll be closer, but I think Texas can't cover this spread. I think they could win by like 20 here
okay.
for sure. Um, do you like who, when it comes to Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning, who do you like more behind the helm right now?
I like Arch Manning. I just think he's been a little more dynamic. He's a little more useful with his legs. Quinn Ewers, he's doing great. His consistency has always bugged me. I haven't seen really an improvement in his consistency this year.
Mhm,
He's just, he's showing out. He's got great weapons.
mhm.
But I think Arch is actually a difference maker at the position. He looks really special to me, whereas yours looks solid, kind of like an okay-ish, like solid, good quarterback who has great moments.
Yeah,
But Arch just seems to have that dog in him,
yeah.
fire when he's behind the helm there.
Well,
So
Ewers and Arch, both out of high school, they were top prospects, right? Coming out, they
yeah,
were, I believe, one in the nation when they were coming out, both of them.
but yeah,
Ewers has struggled with injuries, though, right? And that's been
yeah,
his kryptonite right now. And it's not necessarily, he has had injuries where it takes him out for an extended period of time, but a lot of them it's just banged up, missing a couple games. I think some scouts take that into consideration and said, hey, is this our franchise guy that we want to use this pick on, knowing he may get hurt for 2 or 3 games a season? So that's gonna be good. Arch Manning, his dad's favorite, one of the Manny's wide receiver. grandpa, Arch Manning. He has uncles Peyton and Eli. So he's definitely learning the mechanics. I'm sure Thanksgiving dinners, family dinners, or whatever it may be. He's talking to them like, "Hey Peyton, talk to me how I can improve my reading on the skills. How do I call these Omaha plays?" And Eli, "Hey, how do I make these legit throws? You're a 2-time Super Bowl winner. What can I do to be better?" So he definitely has the right family tree to come out with if we're talking about solid quarterbacks. But there's a lot to see, and I'm excited to see what he can do next year because we'll be talking about him as a top pick potentially as well. But this will be a good game. This is going to be I won't say our first exciting one, but this one's going to be huge to see what they do. And you never know, Oklahoma could come out and slap Texas in the face too and just wake them up and surprise them. Next game here is going to be Penn State #4 at USC. Penn State favorite -3.5. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I think Penn State covers this pretty easily, but like this feels. I mean, Penn State's looked really, really good. They consistently have been doing it. USC, they also, I mean, they look okay. They look good, but I would say they mostly look okay. Still trying to get their footing. I was surprised at this spread, 3.5. I mean, I know it's at USC, but it feels like Penn State should be able to cover this.
Yeah, I mean, look at these real quick. The tail of the tape here is going to be the running game. I mean, last week they allowed 193 rushing yards against Minnesota.
Yeah,
Darius Taylor's a phenomenal athlete. Don't get me wrong, but at the same time, we had 144 yards, right? Darius Taylor's a running back that you need to have on your DEVY rosters, or you need to be watching his tape because if healthy, he's at injury. If healthy, he's gonna be a running back. We're talking about Minnesota knows how to produce some running backs, but now USC is facing a Penn State team that has two running backs that I can argue are better than Darius Taylor in Katron Allen and Nicholas Singleton. Um, Nicholas Singleton, I do believe, is banged up, if I'm not mistaken, but I'm pretty sure he should be playing this week.
yeah,
So this is a match where, yeah, they're going to go down the wire, and it's just going to be a bloodbath for USC defense trying to stop these two guys. They're bigger than Darius Taylor. They're pure runners. They run straight into they're the ones that just straight force
yeah,
going in there. So I think Penn State covers this. I think it's not close. I think they're winning by double digits. USC has the offense to make it happen if they needed to, but I think Penn State, they've been solid on defense too. So I think Penn State is going to cover this. This is going to be because their running backs run wild against this USC defense.
yeah. No, that's exactly what I see happening. Drew Alar has looked better too. I mean, more consistent. He's not pushing it downfield still. I really, really want to see him push it downfield, but he's not a guy who's going to make a lot of mistakes either. So there's not
Yeah.
a lot for USC to capitalize on to make it close.
Yeah. With Drew Alar, I know, like you mentioned, he's not pushing it downfield. Is that him, or is that just their offense saying, "No, we're just going to run through our running backs," right?
Yeah,
Because
I think it's just the offense.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
because the wide receivers are decent. I wouldn't say any of them are top. I don't have any of them as like day two picks. But I think it's just when you have these offenses, these running backs, they're like, hey, we're going to use these guys to make sure they're super efficient, doing what they got to do. And they are, and we're not even talking about the freshman running back, including Martin, that's there as well, that can actually do some good things as well. So I think it's more so they know they have these running backs in the game. Um, Biggest thing, if they're down, we haven't necessarily seen it as much yet, but if they're down, can Drew Alar bring them back, which would be huge. If they think that's touchdown on running back. So that'll be big to see later down. But I do think Penn State covers, and yeah, if you can get Nick Singleton or Katon Allen, go after them because they're going to be top running backs as well. Day two picks for potentially both of them as well.
yeah,
Next one, Stanford at Notre Dame. This is a big one. Stanford or Notre Dame, number 11 at Notre Dame, favorite 22.5. What are your thoughts here?
yeah. I mean, it's tough to go into Notre Dame Stadium. They're one of the biggest fan bases out there. All Indiana comes out, so Stanford's going to have a tough crowd to work with. But Notre Dame, I feel like Notre Dame never covers these types of spreads. I feel like they have a good enough team where they should, but they just never seem to. I
Mhm.
could see this being a two-score game where Notre Dame is actually just absolutely dominant, but for whatever reason, Stanford hangs around. I mean, they do have
Mhm.
good pieces on offense in Stanford. Uh, Ayamor is a legit wide receiver there, but Notre Dame wins this game. It's just a matter of by how much. Over 3 scores feels too aggressive for me.
Right. I think the I am more, Stanford is big there. Notre Dame, I feel at times they try to play physical football, and at that times I feel like that bites them.
Yeah,
They want to play too physical, and it's like, bro, sometimes you need to back it up. Like sometimes they overshoot in certain situations. Um, Notre Dame, they're what 4-1 if I'm not mistaken.
yeah,
So they should cover this. It is at home, so this should be a big one for them. But at the same time, um, they've looked ugly even in some of these wins. Their loss is going to haunt them against Northern Illinois. That can potentially knock them out of the playoffs. They're right there on it with the 12 teams right now, but that can potentially do some bad things for them as well. So we'll see. I don't. I can see IMR having a big game. Potentially, Notre Dame has a top defensive back too, and Benjamin Morrison there, so that could be huge in covering him. But I think if they move around IMR Stanford, then that's gonna be something that can definitely help them potentially get the upset here if they're able to move around, not keep him locked into Morrison or anything like that as well. Jeremiah Love, good running back for Notre Dame that you need to watch out for. I think he's under the radar as well. But this could be closer to what it is. Notre Dame should win this game outright, though. I'm not 100% on the spread quite yet, though.
yeah. Well, it's just Riley Leonard just doesn't look like a difference maker. Which is also, I mean, we talk about a lot of the Notre Dame kind of receiver weapons. You have Bo Collins, Jaden Greathouse, and Mitchell Evans in particular. A lot of people had Mitchell Evans like in the top of this class, and I think he's still under 100 yards receiving. He was a little hurt. But I mean, how much of the lack of production is on Riley Leonard and his noodle arm, and how much is, and the way this offense operates, frankly, they never seem to put up huge numbers, and how much is actually on the talent of these guys. This is one where it's really hard to judge, I think. So I'd still want to keep these guys on my roster for combine time. Not that Notre Dame them well for combine, but Jeremiah Love is a legit weapon for them. But yeah, it's tough with Riley Leonard there to watch Notre Dame play football.
Yeah, he's not a needle mover. I think it's Sam Hartman 2.0, right? He's not someone that's necessarily doing anything big. I mean, he's a field general, but even at that, he's not necessarily someone that's going to push it down the field in 2 minutes. I don't feel like he's, if he's down, he's going to be down. That's what it is. But I mean, hopefully he can improve over the season. I think he can't get drafted. He might be a UDFA, but I think he could be a day 3 pick as just someone that just wants a solid backup. Great IQ for the game there. Yeah. Next year we have California at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh number 2, Pitt favorite -3.5. What are your thoughts here?
This is going to be a fun game. So this is one that I was looking forward to. Eli Holstein, I mean, that's your boy. He's come popping out. I didn't see the rushing for him coming out of high school, but he's been really mobile. He's good at maneuvering a pocket. He'll get the first downs when it collapses. Cal is a good team, but they're banged up. Jaden Ott seems to be dealing with an injury every single week this year, which is going to hurt his stock. I had him as a fringe day 2 guy coming into the year, but I'm getting concerned with the injuries. He's going to fall day 3, maybe even UDFA if he really keeps struggling. So hopefully he can get healthy. He's been great in the receiving game. He just hasn't gotten it going as a runner this year, which I think was what he needed to prove, was that he could push between the tackles, he could move piles. He hasn't. All he's shown is that the piles move him and put him on the IR, which is never good. The NFL hates that. So, and that's sort of Cal's identity, is their running game. They're a good team, but I think Pitt covers the spread here. I think they probably win by a touchdown or 2. Holstein just looks really good. He's spreading around, and no particular weapon is bringing him up. And Desmond Reed is absurd. So, yeah, that's sort of my thoughts on the game.
No, yeah, Reed, I mean, second nationally in yards per game, with the 193.5 there. So he's definitely doing something right. Holstein, man, he is going to be overlooked. And this is your warning for people watching the Devy Game Day show. Do not overlook Holston. Transfer from Alabama. If Kenny Pickett win in the first round, Eli Holston could definitely go in the first round. Kenny Pickett win the first round off of one play. Eli Holston's going to go off in the first round off of his whole season, the consistency of what he's doing. Right now, he is taking them to new heights out there in Pittsburgh. Downfall, Cal right now leads the nation in interceptions. They have 11 interceptions total, so that's going to be big for them. But what Eli Holston could do, this may be the hardest secondary he's doing. Um, L. Smith, welcome into the show. Y'all got Oregon or Ohio State, man. Oh, we're gonna get into that. We're definitely gonna talk about that game. That's a huge matchup. So we'll get into that here shortly. You'll hear our answers there. But that's gonna be big. I think Eli Holston is someone you could definitely watch out. Especially as a freshman. Again taking it to new heights, man, and let's get him a true alpha wide receiver out there. I don't believe they truly have one. And it could just be more on him just being able to spread the ball. But that's gonna be good. I know Montfield's out there to look good. You have Reed also doing some great things for there. So let's get him a solid receiver. He may be able to get some recruits in there as well. So that's gonna be big for him there. But I absolutely love him. You mentioned Jaden on Cal as well. I think that's going to be a big game for him. I think he is going to have to show out and do some big things because we know Desmond Reed will. Desmond Reed's very elusive. He can get between his tackles. He can get small when he needs to be. So that's going to be huge for him as well. But I think Pitt covers this and because it's at Pittsburgh. If it was at Cal, maybe, but Cal had a huge upset in grass last week, and then they dropped it. Right, they dropped it to Miami. So they're gonna go in there and improve. And I think momentum and the morale is lower than what it would have been coming off of upset. So Pittsburgh's gonna take advantage of that and slap them in the face. I think. This one's interesting. Purdue at Illinois, number 23. Illinois favorite 22.5. What are your thoughts on this game?
Oh, excuse me. I think this is going to be a close game, closer than the spread says. But Illinois is going to knock them out of the park. Oh, excuse me. Let me get some water.
No, you're good. Yeah, no, you're good. Illinois should knock them out of the park for sure. Purdue does have some good guys. They have okay people there. They have a solid defensive back in Dylan Thiemann, who's as a true freshman came out and did fantastic work for them. But then Illinois on their side, they have a quarterback that really should be at least in your CFF league, C2C. Maybe not so much, but I know I've seen a couple of people pick him up in Devy and Luke Allemeyer as well. 14 nationally in completion percentage right now with 70%. 19th in passing efficiency in the nation right now. Thrown 11 touchdown passes as well. Luke Allemeyer is taking the Illinois offense to a whole new level right there. So I think the way Purdue is playing, it's been rough. We saw them come out last year. We saw them have Tyrone Tracy, which was huge for them. But it just hasn't been. Maccabee hasn't been their guy right now for them. Hudson Carter has been struggling as well, So it's just been a few things left and right that have been it. Their saving grace is Thiemann. If Thiemann can make some big plays, right now they're leading tackler across the board. That's going to be huge for him on the defensive side and how he can shut down any wide receiver that he's facing against. Illinois should cover this. This is mostly because Purdue as a whole has just not looked good this season. So Illinois should cover this spread.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Yeah, not much out.
Purdue to say here.
Yeah. Next one though, Arizona at BYU. BYU number 14. BYU favorite -2.5. Are we accepting that, or are we saying nah? This is Arizona's game. I know they struggled here and there, which is unfortunate. But we talk about Ted McMillan. He's the one. Don't get me wrong. I am as the first wide receiver off the board. Because of his size, right? 6'4", 6'5", over 200 pounds. I am as the one. He's had 3 games over 100 yards. He's had 2 games where he's kind of just been knocked out, where it's just what's he doing? And I feel that's my worry there. Against the NFL, you're facing more physical guys at the defensive back position. You're facing more aggressive guys when it comes to getting after the ball. McMillan can get locked out and he can become irrelevant for a game. that hasn't caused them to lose. Actually, the most recent games he's had over 100 yards, they lost. So it's kind of those, if they're force feeding him, it ends up being that they can lose the match. If they don't, though, it's like maybe the guys are receiving him and he's getting over. Guys are covering him and the other wide receivers are getting so they're open to spread the ball there. Um, it's really big, man. But again, I watch the tape. I like what I see, but at the same time, man, there are some worries thinking. Is it really Ted McMillan? Is it Noah Fafita there? But what are your thoughts here with this game?
Yeah, I mean BYU is such a weird team. I think they probably cover the spread. Um, it's all sum greater than the parts. There isn't really one standout player that I can find on this team that I can tell you this is why they're winning. This is why they're dominating. But the defense is really legit. The offense, Retzlaff, he's not an NFL quarterback, but he's good enough to lead this college team.
Mm-hmm.
Arizona, they do, as you said, they get locked in a Tet. Fafita is the problem. He cannot look past Tet, and when he does, there's nobody really for Arizona to help pick him up. He's just not really a high caliber quarterback. I know he was a sleeper coming into the year, but I think Tet made him look good, and a couple of those weapons leave.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, it's just Tet left. It's not working. They've had some injuries to their running back room too. But yeah, I think BYU pulls it out. I cannot tell you a player on their team that is a Devy asset. Not even on the IDP side. I can't really find anyone that I'm like, this is a guy right now who's going to be a day 2 or better pick.
Yep.
So, but they're a good football team, and it's hard to argue with that.
CFF teams probably, you definitely get them. The defensive backs, their secondary,
Yeah.
21 pass deflections, 7 interceptions as well. So Fila could struggle, again, that they take advantage of those mistakes and they get after it as well when it comes to attacking the ball and making sure wide receivers aren't getting it there too. So that could be huge for them. Next one here though, Mississippi State at Georgia. Georgia number 5. Georgia favorite minus 34 here. What are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, this is going to be the bloodbath. These big spreads always scare me. I'm not putting money on this game, but I mean, Georgia probably covers. They're going to come out feisty. They want to win. Mississippi State is just terrible.
For sure.
So, I mean, Georgia's going to run all over them. They might try to get like Carson Beck some confidence and have him pass it all over him too. But 34 and a half, 34 is that's a monster spread.
Yeah. I think they could, man. Mississippi State is just not looking. If this was Mississippi State last year, I don't think that spread's covered. I think they could come out because they had 2-sided linebackers last year. And this year, the defense just looks atrocious. They're not making plays happen. Georgia should be able to do good things here, whether you have Etienne or Frazier in the backfield. Kobe Young, no longer with the team, suspended indefinitely for some off the field issues. So, as much as I enjoyed watching him, I mean, he wasn't really a factor. Like they weren't necessarily using him. So it'll be interesting to see, which Georgia wide receiver actually truly steps up. Right now, I don't really have anyone as like a Devy asset on the Georgia receiving end. I do have Oscar Delt, but I mean, I'm not really. Whenever it comes to Devy, I don't take my tight ends. I wait for them. Eurosec hasn't been, I feel he's been battling with injuries. Dominic Levet, I mean, he could maybe sneak in if the season comes through. I know people were heavy on him, but possibly being Lab and cocky there. But this is going to be Georgia just running the ball down the field, getting through it. Carson Beck can do enough to not lose this game and to cover the spread as well. And then Georgia has defenses, man. They have 3, maybe 4 guys that could potentially be first round picks on defense. If not, they have multiple that could be, top day 2 type of picks as well. So defensively, Georgia's just gonna shut them out. I just don't see Mississippi State having any firepower on offense to be able to say, oh, okay, yeah, we can, make it a closer game. So I mean, I think this is just gonna be something where they go out there and they just completely annihilate them. I mean, I think this is gonna be potentially the biggest blowout of the day for them. On the top 25 at least.
Yeah, one name I want to mention, he's hurt right now. I don't know if he's back in this game, but he could kind of fill in. London Humphreys, sophomore for Georgia, really limited tape. If a wide receiver can step up, I think he has the traits too. But again, I think he's hurt, so it might be like a buy low in C2C, not making Devy rosters when he's hurt and hasn't shown much. So,
Sure.
but keep an eye when he comes back. He could possibly fill in now that there's a little more space in that receiving game.
Yeah, 100%. Good call there. Good call. And then let's see, next one. Florida at Tennessee, number 8. Tennessee favorite minus 14.5. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, Tennessee is a legit game, legit program. I think they come out, probably cover the spread. Imaliva needs to keep stepping up, keep showing up. Arch Manning looked better than him, so that's going to be the battle for next year's class. But he still looks also special. So on the Florida side, man, Florida always should be better. They never are better. So
Facts.
yeah, I don't know. They're a weird one. Lagway, I think Lagway's great. I really do. He looks legit. I think Eugene Wilson comes back today, which is huge for them, and could help them make this game tight. But I just don't think that they're good enough to hang with Tennessee for whatever reason. It's not talent. That's not the problem.
Well, Tennessee got rocked last week. I won't say
Yeah.
rocked. They didn't get that blowout, but they lost to Arkansas. So this is going to be a redemption game. They're at home. They need to go out there and say, hey, we're not that team that lost last week, right?
Yeah.
They can't put up the points here, against Florida. Excuse me, Florida's defense. I think that's going to be big, tell the tape. So player by player, Tennessee has the better quarterback. I do like Lagway, but for whatever reason, they're like Graham Mertz is still a guy. That's a mistake. Put Lagway in there and start giving him these reps. This is your future. Graham Mertz is not the guy that's going to win you national championships. I'm sorry.
He's not even going to win your college games.
Yeah, it's barely. He's always in there. Running backs: Dylan Sampson over Montreal Johnson. There, he's the better running back. Dylan Sampson has been looking electric. You can go pick him up in Devy Leagues. I think he's going to be someone in the future that we want to talk about. The wide receivers, though, this is where the tell the tape is, because the Florida wide receivers on paper, to me, are the better wide receivers than the ones in Tennessee. What Tennessee has is Nikolai Iamaleava. So those wide receivers look good because Nikolai Iamaleava can't get them the ball. If you put him behind the Florida line and give him those Florida wide receivers, it's going to be fireworks. That's the difference, because you have, like you mentioned, if Eugene Wilson's back, you have Elijah Badger there, as well. You have different guys and playmakers on the receiving core for Florida that can do some good things. So that's going to be the benefit. If they could take advantage of that Tennessee secondary, maybe we see something. Thing is, Graham Mertz is someone that's necessarily got to push the ball. If he can feed it underneath and let his guys get through the plays, that could be a huge upset for them. If Tennessee didn't lose last week, I could see Florida potentially covering this. But because Tennessee lost last week, just by 5 points, I believe, that's where it's going to be the tell of the taste, where they're going to be like, hey, this is what we're doing. This is what we need to do to make it happen. That's going to be big for them. And I think they're going to go out there and make a statement game. They're going to go out there and blow it out the park, and they're going to say, hey, let's dominate and let's just annihilate them. We're better than 8, and we're going to have some teams that potentially get, lose a match in the top 7. So this is an opportunity for them to, even with one loss, potentially get back into the top 7 there. But yeah, I have Iamaleava, go trade for him. I think he's QB1 right now, but Arch can make him push for it too. Leads us to the game of the day, the cause game day. This is for our guy L. Smith. Ohio State number 2 at Oregon number 3. Why is Oregon the underdog when it's at Autzen? That's a mystery that I'll forever not know. But what are your thoughts on this game? And I'll share mine.
No, you're good. I'm going to let you take most of this. I'm going to go quick. I mean, I think that it's good for Oregon to be underdogs because it gives them a little chip on their shoulder to want to come out and prove that, hey, listen, we're at home.
Yeah.
Come on, guys. It's going to be a sea of green. Lots of ducks.
Yeah.
But Ohio State is, I mean, they travel. They're a team that travels. But, I mean, also, they have so much talent. I mean, honestly, Ohio State might be the most talented college team I've ever seen, just in terms of NFL pedigree on both sides of the ball that's about to come through. But that doesn't take away from Oregon. Uh, Jordan James looked really, really good. I think he's a legit NFL prospect at running back. I don't know if he gets past if he's just a day 3 guy who's intriguing, or if he can sneak into day 2. But he looks legit good. Tez Johnson, same thing. He hasn't been explosive or electric, but he's so consistent. He's gonna get NFL pedigree, and I do really like Dylan Gabriel for the NFL. I think it's a day 2, day 3 kind of guy, but I think he's the type of backup that can come in and show some things and push for a job. I don't think he's got the Bo Nix storyline to him because he just hasn't been able to push it downfield enough. But yeah, this is your team though, so you tell me where I'm wrong, and you tell me let your anger out, let your anger out on this underdog story.
So man, hopefully I'll watch my show, The O, on the CFB Nation Friday Night Light special. Go check that out. It's on my X page at the PPR show or at the CFB Nation show as well. But to get into details on this, all right. Ohio State has one of the best offenses in the nation, or both defenses and offenses. Their defense right now leads nation in total defense, allowing 4 touchdowns through their games right now, total touchdowns. So they've been dominating. Oregon right now has been averaging 450 plus yards a game. Dylan Gabriel leads the nation in completion percentage, thrown for 1,400 yards, over 1,400 yards, 11 touchdowns. Phenomenal. Dylan Gabriel the past 2 weeks has made mistakes when it matters. He's made mistakes in the end zone. Big plays, throwing interceptions. That can happen. In recent interviews, he talked about that's on me. I can't be making those simple mistakes. And I'm glad he took accountability. Sometimes you say, oh, we need to just do better. But no, he took it. That's on me. It's not on my guys. That's on me. I need to do better at that. He's a veteran quarterback. That's 5 years, I do believe, in the league now. He understands the game, man. He knows how to break it down. This Ohio State defense is going to come after him. They have Jack Sawyer on the edge. They have JT Chumaloa. That's going to be big for them as well. They have a top defensive back in Denzel Burke. They have a transfer in Caleb, I think Caleb Odoms, if I'm not mistaken his name, from Alabama last year that's doing phenomenal as well. They have guys that can close it down. So the key of the tape is we have to get back to the Pac-12 identity. I feel all off season it was like, all right, we're going to the Big Ten. We have to change our identity as a team because we heard in interviews some guys say, how are people going to match up to you, or why can't people match up to you in the Big Ten? And they said their speed. Their speed is there. Don't get me wrong, we see it, but we're not seeing it consistently through 4 quarters. Yeah. And that's been the issue. The biggest key to a victory is Oregon has to play all 4 quarters. I've seen in some games this year they have played not to lose, which isn't the way you play football. Sportsmanship, you can blow a team out and still have great sportsmanship. If you are up 14, Oregon, keep your foot on the gas and go up 28. You know what I mean? And that's something I haven't seen from them. I haven't seen them have that foot on the gas to say, hey, I feel once they're up, they play more conservative, play more to not lose. They're doing more closer to the chest type of plays. They're doing runs, first, second down runs, then third down, they'll try to pass, make it incomplete. They're going 3 and out. All these little things that need to happen, you cannot do that against Ohio State. Ohio State has playmakers. Hopefully, Jordan Burch recently came out that he has injuries, so he's a game-time decision. Hopefully, he plays because if not, that's huge. That means Mateo Ugalele is going to need a step up. That means we're going to have Jeffrey Bassa needs to be effective in their tackles. They've been missing tackles as well. We need to be locking in. Ohio State, tit for tat, has guys on offense that can make plays. Their running backs, arguably the best in the nation. Traylon Henderson, Crimson Junkins. Their wide receivers, arguably the best in the nation. Carnell Tate, Emeka Ibuka, Jeremiah Smith. Top guys. We need to make Will Howard make mistakes. This needs to be something where our guys like Nico Reed or Jabbar Muhammad go in there and jump on the balls. They're going to go after Jeremiah Smith. We know that. So we have to be prepared to cover deep. We can't let Jeremiah Smith beat us deep. A lot of his substance came from him just going deep and being the secondary. We can't allow that. That cannot happen at Autzen. The stadium could be loud, all it is. This comes down to Oregon. Oregon is going to beat themselves. Dan Lanning said it against the Boise State game after. or against the North Dakota State or South Dakota, whoever they played beginning of the season. I can't remember. But when they played it them, that was huge. Where he was like, "I'm not disappointed in the results. I'm disappointed in the process. The process has to be fine tuned here. The process has to be keyed. This is in our house. It's in Austin. We know the stadium's going to be there behind us. But in the end, we have to be the ones to go out there and convert. We have to be the ones to make the plays. We cannot let Ohio State get the time of possession battle. If they do, it's because we're scoring in 3 plays. It can't be something where they're winning the defensive battle and we're taking, 7, 9, 11 play drives down the field to get. Anytime we get into the red zone, we have to put up points. If it's not 7, you better be putting up 3, and that comes with Oregon having the concentration, with Dylan Gabriel not making those simple mistakes. You talk about him as an NFL prospect, man. He's shorter than your prototypical quarterback, right? That hurts him, and I see that in his game, where I think sometimes he struggles to see over the offensive line, so he makes plays in a panic rather than seeing over the line and going through his reads and scanning through them. So I think that's what hurts him most. And this is a big game. If he makes that play again, back-to-back weeks where he had interception in that end zone, where he had just bad plays happening in the end zone, you cannot have these type of turnovers against Ohio State, man. Ohio State will capitalize on that. One of those turnovers is going to suck the air out of Autzen Stadium. And the air is beautiful out of Eugene. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. It's green. You cannot allow those things to happen, and that's going to be huge. Ohio State -3. I'm not going to take it. I'm going to say Oregon wins. That's just me. But no, I do think this is close, man. This is really a coin flip of a game. If our defensive backs can show out, which they have, if they can show out, that's going to be big because they can't allow Jeremiah Smith to beat them over the top. Emeka Ubika's a fine route runner. They can't allow him to do some cuts. And then Oregon, we had to utilize our playmakers. One thing that Bo Nix was successful on, he took shots deep downfield, but he also got his hands to his playmakers or got the balls to the playmakers quickly, and they made the plays. Tez Johnson is our leading receiver. We know they're going to be covering him. So where's Evan Stewart out? We needed Evan Stewart game. There's been times where I see Evan Stewart's look effective, and then they don't target him the rest of the game. It's like, what are you doing? Use this guy. My hope is Dan Lanning, the coach for Oregon, has not opened up his playbook completely. And this is a game where we see it, where we're seeing different plays that they're running. They're actually going out there and getting it. They're bringing blitzes all day. They're making it Will Howard feel the pressure in the backfield. They're getting into the gaps to close those run stoppings. It's going to be huge. All around, each team's going to come out here and fight. This is big, though. Oregon, welcome to the Big Ten. I said it. This is their first official match in the Big Ten. I know they played Michigan State last week, but that was against a coach that came from Oregon State, against a quarterback that came from Oregon State. So still a Pac-12 mentality. This is the welcome to the Big Ten. This is what it's about. We practice all off season to say, hey, what are we doing in the Big Ten, right? What are we gonna do? We gotta get the Big Ten mentality in the sense of be physical, fight in the trenches. They've been doing that. Our offensive line has to do better protection this week. Our defensive line has to continue to bring that pressure, and we can definitely win. I'm going to take Oregon as the favorite, as I guess the upset here. But, man, this is going to be a shootout. I'm excited to watch this. This is the game day. This is going to be a great game. It's on Peacock. Go watch it. 4:30 Eastern. Or no, 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific. Big game, man. Big game. But this is going to have Devy prospects all over it. Keep an eye on because both sides of the ball, just big game. Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah. No, 100%. Everything you said, I repeat.
But that's huge. So, Elspeth, I take Oregon. Do you think Ohio State wins, or you say Oregon?
Close your ears. I think Ohio State probably takes this one. I do think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be a good game. That spread. I mean, I could see it coming down to a field goal. I mean, I really could. Walker Howard hasn't looked great, so
defense out makes the players.
Yep, you just got to make some plays on him because he will make mistakes. So that's the real key. I don't know how you stop those running backs. I think that's going to be Oregon's biggest problem. Is stopping those running backs, but I could see them giving the passing game some trouble and it being a fireworks showdown. But it comes down to Dylan Gabriel. can he push it downfield? Can he get Evan Stewart involved? And can he keep up with that Ohio State offense against such a good defense?
Yep. Agreed.
So it'll be interesting.
The quarterbacks will definitely lose the match for their team this week because they're
Yeah.
going to be the ones making the mistakes there. That was a good rant from you. I appreciate you giving me the floor there. But let's go on to our next one. Ole Miss number 9, another banger at LSU number 13 going into Death Valley, but Mississippi, Ole Miss is favorite minus 3.5. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I don't like that Mississippi is favored. You're going in against LSU here. Maybe this is just favoritism, but Trey Harris is banged up. And when Trey Harris is banged up, Jackson Dart all of a sudden doesn't know how to play quarterback. So we saw that last week when Harris went out, Dart really struggled. Harris came back in, Dart looked good again. And, I think for Devy purposes, we're talking about Harris. Harris is probably a day 2 pick, probably mid to early second round, depending on the athletic testing. But he is, for college, he's the best receiver in college football right now. He's balling out. And Henry Parrish, the running back for Miss, also balling out. Mm-hmm. But I think without Harris on the field, I don't know if I saw mixed reports on whether he would make it out. I'm sure he's going to do his best to get out there because he was returning to the game last week too. Mm-hmm. But even if he's banged up, he's not 100%. I think that this Ole Miss offense is going to struggle just enough for that LSU offense and defense to pull through. Mm-hmm. Nussmeier, I'm not seeing a real legit NFL quarterback there. He's got some good anticipatory throws. He understands how to play quarterback really well. But his actual traits, I don't see high-end traits that would make him a starter at the NFL level. Not that it takes much to be a starter, but a good, consistent starter at this point.
For sure.
And there's a lot of weapons on LSU that can give him trouble. We talk about Kyron Lacey, who I really, really like. A little inconsistent, but he's played well. Aaron Anderson, small, undersized, but fast as all heck. Mason Taylor. There's too many weapons, I think, that are going to give a great Ole Miss defense just enough trouble for LSU to pull this one out.
Yeah. Nussmeier, I know some had him a top prospect. I think he stays another year. I think we're seeing it that he needs another year to stay, and he could possibly elevate to a top 3 quarterback. Because if you talk about Arch and Nico next year, that's going to be huge. Arch may stay in there. I don't know. Arch may not. He's been talking about being a pro quarterback since he was a freshman, but a true freshman at that. So that could be big. LSU has some defense. Harold Perkins Jr. out for the season. Tore ACL, I do believe, or if I'm not mistaken, I think it was a tore ACL. So that's going to be big. That's heavy on LSU's defense, but they still have some playmakers out there as well. For Ole Miss, on defense, Princely Umanalen. I don't think I said that correctly, but their edge rusher. If he could get back there and get pressure onto Garrett Nussmeier, I think that can hurt him. Garrett Nussmeier, the one thing I think he does better than anyone right now in college football is the way he throws the ball. He knows how to layer. He has a fine touch to his ball, and he has a good arm that he could throw the deep ball and just beautiful throws down the field right into all his wide receivers need to do is just hold their hands up, and he's going to throw it right onto them as well. But that's going to be big. If Trey Harris isn't there, we're going to see a lot from Juice Wells. We need to see him step up, to take over that spot. That's going to be big for him. And then you also have, Henry Parrish. I think that's going to be big for him, with LSU being a little banged up with no Perkins now. It's like, all right, you got to be the runner, get between the tackles there as well. For LSU, you did mention freshman running back Caden Durham. I think that's a heavy Devy prospect where maybe people aren't realizing him because he's a freshman. So go out there and see if he's still available on your Devy boards because he's someone to talk about in the future as well. And I think that's been a missing piece for LSU for years is their running back. So that's going to be huge for them as well.
Is he playing today? That was my only question. I know he was hurt. Is he playing?
Let's double check, shall we? Second here. Let's see if he is. That changes some things if he's not.
Yeah, that was. I think I had on my radar that he might not. He's listed as probable.
Probable.
Yeah. So he's probably playing then.
Yeah, he's been expected to be available. right now. He practices all week, so uh, that's gonna be. Yeah, I think he's a very smooth running back. He's very elusive in the open field as
Yeah,
well. Um, I can't give this to Ole Miss, even if Trey Harris is there, just because it's in Death Valley. If this was in Ole Miss, if this was in Mississippi, I'd switch it up. I'd say yes, but because it's in Death Valley, I think LSU can come. The biggest thing though too is they're coming off a loss themselves, if I'm not mistaken. Um, no, they won against South Carolina. They lost 2 weeks ago against Kentucky. So um,
yeah,
I think this is LSU. I think the spread is -3. LSU wins slowly, but this is big. But at the same time, if Jackson Dart comes out here and balls, that's really good for his Heisman candidate, right? If he comes out
yeah.
here and does it, because I think early in the season we saw it, and now we're seeing our digress. So there's some big things for him to happen there as well. Um, Next year, Iowa State 11 at West Virginia. Iowa State favored -3. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I was surprised that the spread was this small for this game. I figured it'd be by at least a score.
Mhm.
Iowa State, I feel like they're just consistently underrated for what they've been doing all year.
Mhm.
They came out, they dominated Baylor last week. They dominated Houston the week before. Dominated Arkansas State. I mean, they've been the offense in particular has been legit good.
Mhm.
Um, we're seeing Jalen Noel and Jaden Higgins both are balling out this season, kind of stranglehold on that offense. And I mean, I don't know how it slows down. I think that they go out, they probably ball out. I think they could win this by 2 scores. Never mind, just
Mhm.
one touchdown. But West Virginia does some good things well. I think running back C.J. Donaldson is a legit potential talent for Devy rosters, kind of like a watch list guy. He's a sleeper. But I just don't see how they have enough firepower there to come out and hang with a really good Iowa State team.
Mhm. Fair, fair. Iowa State, it's their defense is the tail of the tape. They're one of the top defenses in the nation, allowing 10 points per game. Phenomenal. They've been shut out on defense on all cylinders. They have top defenders for them there as well. And then you have their quarterback, right? You have Rocco Beck, who's been doing some good things as well, feeding his wide receivers, 9 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Jalen Noel's a wide receiver you should have on your Devy radars, if not on your rosters already. And Abu Sama and Jackson, Jalen Jackson have both been phenomenal runners for them as well. So all around they have some solid guys there. They get after the quarterback. They have 9 sacks already, 12
Yeah,
pass deflections, 8 interceptions. So they're making plays on defense all around. West Virginia, the tell and take for me, Garrett Green has looked. He's had his games. He's had his bad games. Seven touchdowns, 4 interceptions. And it's gonna be their running backs. Their running backs have to do some good things. You have a junior C.J. Donaldson, and then you have Jaheim White. Jaheim White's very elusive in the open field, can make defenders miss as well. That could be a reason why they win. Just making those big plays and being able to punch it right. This isn't a team you're necessarily gonna beat them down the field all the time. So you got to be able to do certain things like that to just get ahead of them. Also, Hudson Clement. Last year, he was a walk on, earned a scholarship. He threw a big game last year where he had like 3 receptions for like 100 something yards. He's the guy that stretches the field. He's a guy that could get down there and make it. So if he could get behind the secondary of Iowa State, that could be huge for them. Um, man, I'm going to say in this matchup. Let me see something real quick before I say it. I think I think West Virginia upsets them. I think West Virginia doesn't upset. This the defense is gonna come out, but I think West Virginia is gonna get a couple big plays, and I think that could possibly be where they get the upset. Short game too. It is gonna be a battle of field goals. This game may go into OT. To be honest, I don't think Iowa State has necessarily faced an offense that moves the ball like West Virginia. You talk about blowing out Iowa, that was a big one. That was a defensive battle. They won by one, right? That was the
yeah,
biggest one because then you had Houston blew them out, Baylor blew them out. So I think this is going to be something similar to Iowa, where it's going to be a battle down the field. but I think it's going to be a field goal separation. And I think West Virginia actually pulls off this upset. They're at home, so I'm going to take them here as well.
Okay. Okay.
Another one that could potentially be upset, if you will, is going to be Kansas State 18 at Colorado. Kansas State minus 3.5. We were talking about Shadir Sanders earlier. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I think this is where we maybe see an upset. Kansas State. I've watched a lot of Kansas State because I really wanted to see what Avery Johnson pull out. I've just been so disappointed by this team. It seems like every time they face opponents that they should knock out of the park, they hang with them. And I mean, there's no more talented player in college football right now than Travis Hunter. There just isn't. And on both sides of the ball, he's been electric. We had a lot of questions coming into the year. Is he going to be a legit wide receiver? He's answered those. The answer is yes. He's looked
For sure.
great. Shadur has looked really good too. He's balling out. This is a real challenge for them. This is an actual test. But I think they could pull this off. This is a good team for them to go up against. The defense is going to be pushed. That Colorado defense, always mediocre outside of Hunter on the outside there. They're going to be pushed by DJ Giddens especially. Can they stop the run is going to be the big question. And Avery Johnson, for that matter, who also has got some good legs on him. But Kansas State doesn't push the ball downfield enough, I don't think. Yeah. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, this isn't going to be about Kansas State pushing the ball down the field. It's going to be about controlling the clock. And I think they will be able to do that with DJ Giddens. Colorado's run defense is horrible. They've allowed over, if I'm not mistaken, over 150 per game, over 100 for sure. And DJ Giddens is going to be the best running back that they face, right? We're talking about UCF, RJ Harvey, okay, good running back. You talk about Nebraska, Dante Dallo, okay, good running back. North Dakota State, Colorado State, Baylor, all had over 100 rushing yards as well. DJ Giddens is the top back that they're facing so far this season, and that's going to be the tell of the tape. You can avoid, Travis Hunter, right? If quarterback plays smart, you can avoid Travis Hunter. Avery Johnson has legs on him as well that he can make the plays too, so that's going to be huge for him. This is going to be something where Shadur, it's going to be coming down to him, right, and what he can do. He can't make costly mistakes, and I say that because they have some good guys on the Kansas State secondary, right? You have Jacob Parrish, who's a cornerback that people need to be on their radars for IDP leagues. You have Austin Moore, as a linebacker that's there. You have a secondary and Jordan Riley that can make some plays as well. So you have guys there that can definitely take advantage of mistakes. At times, we see Shadur hold the ball long. At times, I think he forces throws. He throws dimes, don't get me wrong. In tight windows, though, against a secondary like this, I don't know if he's hitting all those tight throws. So that's going to be huge. And as you said, avoid Travis Hunter on defense, right? If you see him covering your guy, don't look at that guy. Just be like, all right, Travis, you're going to go there again. Look elsewhere. That's fine. On offense, lock him up. I mean, that's hard to say because he's very, very speedy, very quick. But that's something where it's like, bro, if you can lock him down, that offense shuts down. Like if you have to force Shadur to look elsewhere to make plays by himself, that offense gets shut down, and that is a way to beat them. I think Kansas State can pull this off, but I think it's because DJ Giddens is so elusive. DJ Giddens is a hard runner. He's someone that can power through the defenders, and I don't think Colorado has anybody that can stop him on the defensive side of the ball. I don't think they have hitters like that to close the gaps like that to make the big plays. So because of that, I think Kansas State plays a smooth game and just running the clock down because they know DJ Giddens can get that, and that's going to be how they become that victory. This is a battle of one-loss teams, I do believe, 4-1, 4-1. So this is a big one for the Big 12. At Colorado, I don't think that plays a huge factor for Kansas State. So I think Kansas State wins this. Minus 3.5, man. I can see this going by at least a touchdown, 7-point spread here. But yeah, I think Kansas State could do it. Shadur needs to go out there and ball. This is the first big matchup, I feel, in my eyes to them. So this is huge, especially after a loss against a Nebraska. That was their only loss. That was big. Kansas State lost to BYU, that's ugly too. So maybe I'm wrong against this one, but they did beat Oklahoma State and they shut down Ollie Gordon. I know he was banged up, but that was I think this is gonna be a ton of tapes. And we talk about the RB classes. We DJ Giddens, man, he's slowly rising rankings. He's definitely in the mix for the top 7, top 8. By end of the season, we may talk about him as a top 5 running back.
Yeah, no, for sure.
This next one, it's our last one of the day, but this is a huge one. Boise State at 17 at Hawai'i, and Boise State is favorite 20.5. I think Boise State has a pretty good running back. Correct me if I'm wrong, but what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I mean, Sire Gaines is just a legit no. Obviously, Ashton Genty. Um, no, he's. I mean, 20.5. This is the type of team that Genty is going to go score his 3 touchdowns, get his 200 yards, and he's going to sit the rest of the game. Unfortunately, I would love to see Boise just let him run one of these days. Just all right, Genty. Here's 45 carries. Go put up 550 yards on the ground. Score 10 touchdowns. Lock up the Heisman this week, and then we'll run you less in the future weeks.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I mean, and that's going to be this entire game. Hawai'i Ashlock is a decent receiver that they have there. CFF only. I don't think there's really NFL talent there, but this is Genty's going to go out, probably have an 80-yard rush, first play of the game again, scores touchdown, have another one later, and that'll be it. So yeah,
that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, that's it.
So, speaking of Stargates, he is someone you should roster because since he's gone, I think it's his backfield, and that's someone I think could definitely be a good asset for years to come. So just keep an eye on him for your C2C. I think he's a C2C asset. You have him in CFF, but he is C2C, and then next year, once Genty's gone, we may talk about him as a Devy asset. So Boise State, Austin Genty, arguably the one. I actually, in my mock, I have Houston trading up to pick 10 to draft Genty as number 10. I think he's the first RB off the board right now. I don't have him as my RB1, but I think, the way he's doing, he's going to be the first RB off the board there. I have Jumpkins still as the RB1 there. But interesting enough, Hawai'i, in 3 games this season, they have allowed less than 100 yards rushing in 3 games. Okay. In 2 games, they've had over, and in one of the games, it was against my alumni, Eat 'em Up Cats. Sam Houston, they allowed over 250 rushing yards. So, it's like, all right, they can shut down the run in some games, but then they get absolutely destroyed in the run game as well. Granted, in that game against Sam Houston, they did lose that one. Sam Houston just ran wild against them. They lost, 31-13, and that matchup was, let me just see, for Sam Houston. Our guy, Jay Ducker, 148 yards, 257 overall, just multiple. They just dominated them. So they've showed they can close the gaps, but they've also shown they can be exposed as well. We know Boise State is going to feed Ashton Genty. And I say feed without necessarily because they take him out of the first half sometimes. We know Ashton Genty is that offense, though. And we know even if he plays 4 quarters, you can't slow him down. So how do you beat him? You have to tackle efficiently. Ashton Genty by far is the best when it comes to evading tackles. I'm pretty sure he leads the nation in yards after contact. I saw a stat the other day. It was the top 3 running backs in the nation per total yards. Ashton Genty was one. Can't remember who the other 2 are off the top. Let me just see here. It's really irrelevant, so it doesn't matter that I'm looking here. But Ashton Genty, then you have Scatterboo, and then you have Caleb Johnson. It was Caleb Johnson and Amari Hampton because Scatterboo just had his game, so that's why he's up there now. But Caleb Johnson and Amari Hampton there. But then those were the top 3 in the nation. Ashton Genty yards after contact would have made him the 4th top running back in the nation in yards. So his yards after the contact is still number 4 in the nation in total yards in general. Phenomenal. So what was that telling me? People aren't. And granted, I'm not saying this isn't his game, but they're not tackling effectively. They're not getting to him effectively, which becomes the issue. That's where you have to go in there and stop him, right? You have to make sure you are wrapping them up. You aren't letting him slip by you, and he's electric at that. He's the best in the game right now at that. That's the tell though. If you can close him in, if you can make him fight for his inches, bang him up as much as you can. If you have to blitz 7, blitz 6, whatever it is, just to make sure the line's closed, get your quarterbacks into blitz and making sure he's not getting outside. All these things happen, but you have to make sure you are tackling them effectively. Easier said than done, but that's the key to the tape. And again, Hawai'i has guys that can close those gaps. They have guys, we've seen it, get less than 100 rushing yards, right? We've seen their defense dial into the rushing game and make sure these running backs aren't doing it. Ashton Gentry's a newbie. Ashton Gentry is the top running back in the nation. Right now he's top running back going wild for everyone. But if you can stop him, I mean, it's not really like we're talking about him being stopped. I mean, you have Max Matson, who's 63% completion, just over 1,000 yards rushing or 1,000 yards passing. He has 1,056 yards passing. Ashton Gentry has 1,031 yards rushing, right?
Yeah.
So they're definitely focused on that running game. But 10 touchdowns for Matson. You have Camper, who's looked nice, a nice senior, Cameron Camper. I think he's a nice CFF asset to have. I actually just picked him up, I do believe. You have Caples there as well, pretty good. You have their tight end, who's nice as well. But if you can shift it where you're forcing the game to be in Matson's hands, whether you're first in, these 3 and outs, type of situations, or just situations where they're not getting first downs on second down plays, second down, drives, that's where you can force Matson in, and that's where you can win. You're not going to contain Ashton Gentry, but you have to slow him down. That's the key to a victory against Boise State. Can Hawai'i win? Maybe. We're going into a different time zone, so a little bit different there. Not heavy, you're still kind of on West Coast with Boise. But minus 20.5. I think this can be closer than what this spread says. Boise State should win this. Ashton Gentry should still have a good game. But I think this is a game where he has to play off 4 quarters. I don't think he's going to have a first half or a first quarter, 3 touchdowns happening. I think this is a game where he has to play off 4 quarters. But because of that, it may be all 4 quarters where he's just wearing and tearing down this defense, and that ends up hurting him. Or that ends up hurting he's going to end up busting out the big plays in that second half just because it's wearing down the defense there. I think this is a game where we're going to see what they can do to slow them down. Can they cover 20.5? Sure, but I think Hawai'i actually surprises some people and actually closes this a little bit more. I think they have an underrated team with their defense and what they can do. They have, as you mentioned, Profeli Aslock, who could do some big things there too for them. And, if he can stretch the field, which he does pretty well, that could be huge for them as well. If he can beat the secondary and get them over the top. If they can find a way to get up by 14 or so, this is going to be a very close game for them. But Boise State should win that for them as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, Ashton Gentry's first RB off the board for you.
Yeah, I was like you. I had Judkins as my one going into the year, and that flipped pretty quickly. And Gentry just keeps running away with it. I think the team is going to fall in love with the guy. My concerns are mostly with vision. I think a lot of that yards after contact is because I don't know if it's because he doesn't see a guy or because he doesn't have to. But he runs into a lot of would-be tacklers just head on, where there's a gap that he could get away from. So I don't know if I don't know if at the NFL level he can necessarily break every single tackle.
Yeah.
He's breaking every single tackle.
Yeah.
But I mean that's a minor flaw really, because the problem is he is breaking that tackle. So, but it'll be interesting.
I think you bring up a good point there, because I think that goes to show we don't scout the helmet, we scout the player, right? Ashton Gentry's a phenomenal player, but that goes to show sometimes you have to scout the helmets when you're watching the player, right? So you're watching Ashton Gentry and you're being like, man, he's doing great things, but then you're watching the players he's playing against and you're looking at them when he's running into those guys and he's overpowering them. It's like, okay, that's a G5 defender, right?
Yeah.
Vice versa, when he's making some good play. He was doing this against Oregon too, but Oregon, they've had their struggles. So that was, but it's still we're seeing it where is this something where Ashton Jeanty is going to do this at the next level? We've seen time and time again where some guys go in there and yet they just get stopped. They just don't do anything at that next level. They can't break those tackles as they once did. And don't get me wrong, he does have the footwork to evade defenders as well. But yeah, you're right. If he goes head on, he's gonna power through those defenders that way. He's gonna power through them and get the extra yards. If he's going heads on, but then he does a quick juke, right? That's something different. But we're not seeing that as often, so that's where it becomes big for him. But by far one of the top prospects, in the nation. I think he can be a day one pick. Again, I still have Junkins as the one just because is Ashton Jeanty doing this in the SEC? We'll never know, but that's something to consider because we saw Junkins doing it, we're seeing Junkins doing it in the Big Ten as well. So Jeanty's phenomenal. He could be the first G5, running back off the board in the first round since I think Doug Martin was at Boise State as well. So that was huge. But that's it, man. I mean, that's what we have. I know we have 5 minutes for the first kickoff. Who's some games? Any games you're watching that are outside the top 25 right now?
Yeah, I got 2 games that I'm excited to watch: Washington v. Iowa and Georgia Tech at North Carolina, UNC. Washington showed out, beat Michigan last week. I think they might be an underrated team. I think if they pull out a win against Iowa, I could see them sneaking into the top 25. Mm-hmm. Denzel Boston, I think it was Tom Harvey Sports, your guy there, was talking about him as a top 10 wide receiver in this class. Mm-hmm. He had another good game. He keeps showing out. Caleb Johnson's my guy. And then at Georgia Tech, Amarian Hampton, I want to see another good running game because he is pushing his way into the top 5 of this running back class. Just similar to like an Ashton Jeanty type of player where he's bowling guys over. He's crazy after contact. Mm-hmm. So those are the 2 games I'm watching for those players. What about you? Any games you're watching?
Yeah, I think a big one here, man, is Syracuse versus NC State. We know Grayson McCall's done. He's out now. Now we have a new quarterback at NC State. But tell the tape, right? You have Colin McCord, who was at Ohio State last year, and I don't get it because it's looking like he's pushing the ball down the field, which we didn't see it a lot at Ohio State. Like, I just felt the offense wasn't as electric as we're seeing it now. But now he's doing it at Syracuse. So I'm like, what did Syracuse find out with him that they're not? Because had that been it, Ohio State could have possibly won a national championship last year. That's a tell for another story. But NC State, man, you talk about guys that had heavy statistics or heavy stat lines. No one has been, in my eyes, more disappointing this year than Kevin Consumpcion. This year, week 1, he came out 9 receptions, 121 yards, 3 touchdowns. Since then, he has had 28 receptions, 145 yards, and 1 touchdown. And that's in 5 games. 28 receptions, 145 yards, and 1 touchdown after having 9 receptions, 121 yards, and 3 touchdowns in week 1. This guy is your playmaker. This guy is your offense. Get him the ball. I don't understand when teams have these guys like that. And granted, if he's in double coverage, bro, throw it up to him. Kevin Consumpcion has the ability. He has the catch rate just to do that. He's a speedy guy. He's a good guy. I don't understand. Right now, you have Justin Jolly, their tight end, who's another CFF asset, potentially Devy in the future, but someone who's leading the team right now with 20 receptions, 313 yards. So I'm curious to see what this is happening. I know they have a new quarterback, right? We have CJ Bailey going out there and doing the things from. So maybe that's the issue. But at 3-3 at NC State, I had them going higher than that. Granted, I was heavy on Grayson McCall too, coming from Coastal Carolina. But now you have Syracuse, who has the Quinn Allen, who's a solid running back, who has Colin McCord, who's a solid guy. I know my guy JT over at JT Sports, the brew with JT. Big on Syracuse, so that's gonna be good. They have a wide receiver in Gatson, or tight end, excuse me, who's another Orlando Gratson, who's another guy that you used to be having on your radars as well. So I'm excited to see what they can do in that game. I think that's gonna be a solid matchup there. I want to see more for Kevin Consumpcion, especially for someone that was such a top prospect as a freshman. He hasn't really been living up to that hype, in my opinion, as far as this. You watch the tape, he's doing the things, but they aren't getting the ball to him, which I think hurts him.
Yeah. No, I want to see him work down the field more, but I think it's a quarterback problem. I'm hoping it is anyway.
Yeah.
And hope he's not just kind of a close to the line of scrimmage jitterbug type of guy. But
For sure.
I guess we'll see.
For sure. Well, right at the top of the hour, man, I appreciate you, Spencer. Let people know where they can find you.
Yeah, so you guys can find me on X at Buck Wild Sports. Most of my work is posted on the league winners. Had a week off this week with BC on bye. Might still draft something up, but I was a little sick, so I didn't quite get to it. Yeah, you can find all my stuff there. And I've been here almost every week, so I appreciate SC Romero and the Fantasy Football Universe for giving me this time to give my thoughts on these games and some guys to watch. So, yeah.
For sure, but yeah, sickness is going around, so everyone watching, make sure you're staying healthy. Drink your vitamin C's, stay up on your vitamins. Tis the season where sickness is happening, right? Weather's getting colder and stuff like that. So be sure you're staying healthy, take care of yourself and your families. Spencer, always a pleasure. As always, if you're enjoying this fantasy football universe, go ahead and subscribe to us. We're dropping content daily, live things from Start Sits, where we have our show tomorrow at 9. We have our roundtable discussion later on today, just discussing things around the NFL as well. DEVY Game Day coming to you live every Saturday morning. My DEVY Diamonds drops every Friday as well. So keep that on your mind. Again, subscribe so you're never missing out. We are here in the universe to help you win your leagues, really. So subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow us on X at the FF Universe. I'm SC Romero, the DEVY Mastermind of the FFU. Follow me on X at the PPR Show. Until next time, for my man Spencer, probably be on next week as well. We'll see you. Go enjoy some games and go Ducks. Peace.